Hello everybody. I didn't think I'd be jumping on and doing this today. This morning I went for a walk and it's weird, like every once in a while I'll have like these breakthroughs or like these creative breakthroughs, I suppose. And I guess I need to like express myself in some way, whether that be like writing, and I do a lot of writing, whether that be doing something like a podcast like this, or like going and doing like physical activity or something like that to get that emotion out. And I guess that's what this podcast is today. And I was trying to record some clips this morning on my phone, but I found that when I try and talk about things in detail, I end up just rambling and I can talk forever and just try and connect the dots and go from A to Z in different areas. And I guess that's what I did this morning. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to sit down and do a podcast because I haven't done one in a very long time. I think the last one was like 8 to 10 months ago, and there's been a reason for that, of course, for taking time away. It's not that I've not wanted to, or I guess I haven't wanted to, and I haven't done it, but I've needed to take that time away to understand some things and know what it is moving forward now I guess I want to do. And I think at the time I didn't really know that, but that's something that's come out the back end of this. So yeah, that's come from just embracing the ebb and flow of 2024, which was a very big ebb and flow. Let's just say that it was probably the most difficult year in my life so far. And it's funny because I tried to record a podcast talking about that process last week, and it went all right, and I just felt like it wasn't all right, and then I didn't know, felt like I was ready to talk over it all, and whether I was missing parts out, and it just felt a bit bitty. So I ended up just thinking, no, that's not. So that's like 45 minutes. I did it in December as well, which I thought was really good, but something, again, just didn't feel right about it. And I feel like I'll know when it's time. Like this morning, for example, I woke up and I don't know, like my mind, I don't know if anybody else is the same, but when it's kind of like tossing or wrestling with ideas, it's in almost like turmoil. There's like a tug of war going on. And once it sees something or understands something, it's almost as if like the fog clears and you can see clearly, and like a new pathway forms, and then you head down that path. And I guess this morning I definitely felt that way. And the clips I was talking over this morning, it's like I go for a walk every morning down the lane that I live on. Absolutely beautiful lane. I absolutely love my lane, especially. Do you know when sometimes it's like the cold, brisk winter mornings where you can see your breath and there's a bit of frost about, but sometimes there's like a bit of a red sky, but it's also kind of really blue as well. I love that. But then like heading into spring, summer, when like the leaves come out on the trees and it's just so green and like the flowers start sprouting again, that's like proper beauty walking down the road. So I absolutely love it. But when I walk down there every morning, which is obviously a great start to the day, get your sunlight exposure in there, get some fresh air, get some movement in straight away, get hydration on the bounce as well, start your day off on the right foot. It gives me time to think, and I don't know if anybody else talks to themselves. I remember seeing Jay Shetty saying that he talks to himself like when he's driving or just chats to himself in the car. Like, I probably do the same, and I don't know if anybody else does the same, but yeah, I definitely talk to myself. Not all the time, but you know, some people have definitely clocked me walking down my lane and been like, is he all right? Like someone could be sat in the window and looking out the window and being like, who's he talking to? So maybe I need to put some headphones or like some AirPods in just to look like I'm talking to somebody when I'm really not. But yeah, having like a conversation or dialect with myself is really useful for me. And like writing and journaling, I do every day. It's a really important part of my mental fitness and a habit that I have cultivated specifically through this past year to not only gain greater insight and develop a sophisticated understanding of myself, but also to ensure that I can have mental hygiene. And you know, you go to the gym to train your body, you go for runs to improve your cardiovascular fitness. What do we do for our mental? What do we do for the narrative that we tell ourselves? And I guess obviously journaling has been one of the things, along a host of other things as well, which I'd love to talk about in the future. But like articulating things and writing things and sometimes speaking things and being able to kind of like lace a story throughout and understand it and then apply it to yourself is a really good way of like learning those lessons and carving that new pathway and allowing that fog to clear in certain ways. And that's definitely been the case for myself with when I talk to myself. But this morning I was thinking specifically about love and fear, and these two being very powerful and strong emotions. And I think it's because I was reading about it and I saw some content about it yesterday, and it really got me thinking, and it's kind of applying it to my life as well. Because we can, in lots of instances, or I'll probably say all instances, especially like interpersonal, you can choose love or you can choose fear in some ways. And obviously everybody will have their own experiences and their own journeys with both of these things like love and fear. But why is it that some people are more loving and why is it that some people are more fearful? Why is it that some people hold back and kind of repress and push down? And why is it that some people open up and be vulnerable and feel like that is the thing that they are called to do, or that's the thing that they should do during these situations? Like, what is it that's led to people to respond in different ways? Because I've definitely been more fearful in specific areas of my life. I'd probably say to do with like maybe definitely to do with relationships. That's one thing. Like more fearful in many different ways. And again, that's probably another podcast within itself. But it really got me thinking, because you do have a choice between the two, and it made me really try to understand, okay, so why is it that people are these ways? And it's obviously based off your past experience, but a lot of the time it's based off the core beliefs you hold about yourself or these situations or these environments. And these core beliefs are developed from past experiences throughout life, but in particular, those that are presented to you in your childhood, because your childhood is going to be very influential when it comes to developing how you view yourself and how you look after yourself and whether you can meet your own needs and whether you can regulate your own emotions. It's probably going to be the most important part when it comes to building a human being, because essentially that's what you are doing. You know, when you are parenting, you are building a human being. You're thinking, okay, so what is going to set this human being up to go through life on that adventure in the best way possible, with resilience, with love and courage, and with passion and meaning and beauty and awe and all of these different like array of emotions and expressions as we are as human beings. And that's something that, you know, I've come to learn this past year. And it's crazy because like we are humans, but we don't really truly understand ourselves in certain ways. Or we kind of hide parts of ourselves, or we push parts of ourselves away, and we don't embrace fully, truly what it is to be human. And I guess obviously that's quite a big question, and that's something that I've had to go through this past year in terms of like an existential crisis and learning, okay, what it is, what are we here for? You know, because you know, a lot of what I pushed myself to the limits with to achieve in life was something that was quite hollow. It was something that when I got there and I achieved, I still felt empty inside. There was still parts of me missing. There was that I wasn't whole, and I had to go back to the drawing board. And you know, I've summarised a 10-month journey, one in which that is still continuing on, but one that I've got to a good position with now, and also something I can look back on and have a very clear picture of how I got to where I was, what happened, why it happened. And that's pretty much the whole story of my life in some ways, to try and get to that point. But to having that existential crisis, it allowed me to get to a point where I was like, okay, so what is it now? Because I've chased these things and I've done these things and I've worked so hard to get to this point, and then it's almost as if it wasn't true. Like, well, I've used this map to get to this point, and now I'm here. This is where the treasure's meant to be buried. X marks the spot, but there was no treasure, you know. And I was kind of left in the middle of nowhere, and I had to kind of rebuild my idea of life in general, which sounds very deep, and because it is, it's ridiculously deep, and there's loads of different other things that I've had to understand to do with myself and my identity and all sorts. And I know I kind of just talk over this like it's just a small thing, but it was so hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life by a huge mile. And I feel grateful to get to the point that I am today. And I still have my times where I'll go back into a spiral and I'll think, fucking hell, here we go again. But I guess that's the ebb and flow of it all. But right now, like I said at the start, when I have these kind of creative outbreaks where the fog clears, it's like, oh my God, I understand. I see it now. It's crazy. I think over like ideas for a very long period of time, and then I'll like write a little short story or like a passage on it, and then it'll be like another month of me thinking about something else that'll just crop up in my mind or whatever. Or I'll just do a podcast off the back like this. But going back to what I mentioned about like what is life for and what we're here for, and what it is to be a human being, it's like we're not just here to enjoy things. That's part of life, but we're here to live fully within our bodies, interconnected, integrated into us, and we're biopsychosocial beings. I was a very physical person. I was a very go, gym, work, passion, meaning. And, in those areas of my life, I was doing so well. But there's multiple areas of your life. There's physical well-being, there's emotional well-being, there's relationships and family, there's financial, there's spiritual. There's all of these different parts of life. And if you are, let's say, thriving in, 5 of 7, but 2 are just drastically shit, you could say, or just like, you just feel like those tanks are empty, you're going to have periods of serious downtime and serious unfulfillment. And then you will really be really up and down. And to go back and kind of relearn those things and understand those things is a huge journey. And sometimes it's more than 5 of 7, sometimes it's 3 of 7 with certain people. For me, it was a lot. It was a lot. And again, I will do a podcast on that if anybody's interested, and if anybody's listening along about that journey, and maybe try to explain it in further detail, and maybe go into the details of like how I got to the conclusions and different parts of the journey. And I guess that's what I believe that my calling is now as well. Like I do genuinely believe that this is what I'm here for now, to hopefully help other people with in certain ways. I like to what I do with my fitness brand, Joe's Every Day. I like to building that to a point because I overcome challenges and barriers and things that I don't believe like many other people could do at that time. And I worked so hard on it to offer a service, to be able to give them the shortcuts, to be able to remove the guessing game and say, this is exactly what we need to do now. Because I know how painstakingly hard it can be for a fitness journey, never mind a journey like this. Like it's so painstakingly hard, and you have to have parts of you that die in many different ways. But before I go down that path, like I'm going to talk over that in a separate one whenever I feel ready and I can, I guess, articulate it in a really good way. But coming back to that point, it's like we're here to be human. We're here to express ourselves, have a wide variety of expression, and use our intuition, use our bodies, use the feelings that we have, use our emotions to roll through life. And if you carry core beliefs inside of you, and if you, let's say, don't learn the lessons that you need to learn when you're a child, or you learn the wrong lessons, and this could be a handful, this could be 10, this could be 100, and it will be different for everybody, and everybody will have some lessons that you would say are right, and I say right in inverted commas there, because I don't like using right or wrong, because it's very kind of subjective to the person. But you will have some that are going to be, let's say, more conducive to the goals of, for example, let's say love and fear. Connection equals love, or love equals connection. That is a good core belief, because that means when you connect with people, you'll feel loved and you'll look for those situations in the future. Let's say bad in inverted commas, or more unhealthy, we could say healthy and unhealthy. That is definitely the word that we're going to use. We could say unhealthy is, okay, connection equals fear. that's not going to be conducive to a healthy life, because fear, when you connect and if you feel fear, you retreat, you come back, you repress, you depress, you almost like you become subdued. Now that's not going to be conducive towards connection. That's not going to allow you to have good connection, good social, good emotional well-being. Therefore, you have a core belief there or something that you've learned that isn't conducive to the goal that you need to be a human being and live fruitfully in certain ways. So it's really about integrating those things and understanding those things. And the situation I was talking over this morning when I was on my walk, was obviously because I'm a guy, I'm a man, and the role that men have played, or the role that I have played, in particular my own experience, but also like the pressures that have been put onto me within society, like from a national macro level and society level, and then also from the level of your, let's say, the size of your village or your city or your town. And then you've got your peer group, then you've got your family, and then you've got your siblings. You know, you've got all of these different pressures that push and mold you in different ways. And they are very influential when you're very younger, because as a child you look outwards and you are very, very good at mirroring other people, and that's what you have to do. You have to mirror other people as a child, because that's how you learn. You watch, you see what other people do, and then you start to do the same. So if you watch the wrong lesson, and I say wrong, if you watch the more unhealthy lesson, let's get to unhealthy. If you watch the more unhealthy lesson, right, and that unhealthy lesson, again, leads you astray from who you are, the path you need to be on, disconnect within yourself, then you're going to end up in somewhere that you don't even know where you are anymore. And that's where I essentially ended up. So, for example, as being a guy, and the thing that I was talking over is like there's a conflation between vulnerability and weakness. So those two things are attached, let's say, for being a guy. And I think the stigma around that is now changing quite a lot. But it's hard to get that out of you when it's so deep rooted inside of you, and when it's physiological. Because when you have a belief about something, let's say fear, for example, when it's a belief that you have and you've carried, your body changes. And that's why I said we're biopsychosocial beings. Your body will change because you have different pathways so your biology changes, your physiology changes. You have different pathways within your brain. So you look to reaffirm the belief that you have. It's called confirmation bias, because that's the belief that you carry. You see the world through that rose-tinted view. That's the first thing. Your physiology will change. So, for example, let's go back to that situation about connection equals fear or connections equals love. Obviously, there's a more healthy one, but the unhealthy one, connection, so fear is a physiological response within the body. It's cortisol, it's adrenaline, it's fight or flight, it's heart rate high, it's nervous system dysregulated, right? So you then go into healthy situations, and because of your physiology and your biology and your core beliefs, you're sent the opposite way. And because that happens over and over and over and over again, it rewires you. It changes the way that you are and that you go through life and the person that you are, and changes everything to do with who you are from a physiological, biological standpoint inside of your body. The chemical releases, the pathway and how your neurons fire within your brain, whatever, all of that type of stuff. So it becomes so deep rooted inside of us that to get that core belief out of us, you have to change your biology. You have to change the way that your body functions. And this is why when it comes to like healing journeys from these core beliefs, or we could say trauma, and a lot of people, and initially when I first learned the word trauma, I was like, oh my God, I have trauma. Fucking hell, I have trauma. Like, I thought it was really bad, because when you think of trauma, traumatic, you think of like really horrible, things like, sexual abuse, or just vile, horrible situations where people are just tarnished. tarnished to some extent, and obviously they can definitely rebuild themselves back. But you think of these times, you think, oh God, there's no way I have that. But we all carry trauma in certain ways, because trauma is not the thing that happens to us. Trauma is the response of the thing that happens to us. It's the beliefs that we get off the back of the event. So, for example, let's say, easy one, as a child, you could, every time that you got upset and cried, you wanted somebody to come and look after you. But let's say, I don't know, whatever was happening at the time, it wasn't right as a child. And they were like, not now, put you over there. As a child, you don't know anything apart from they're not loving me. That is a form of neglect. So opening up and being upset about something that I care about is obviously the wrong thing. And if that's a repeat pattern, then that's a core belief that you develop. That is the traumatic response in which you have. So if we carry all of these traumas through life, which we all will do, some a lot more than others, but if we carry all of these traumas through life, they will impact us and change the way that we view everything all of the time and what we've built our whole life off, depending on the amount in which you have, because it's going to be very different for everybody. So, going back and rewiring the core beliefs and the experiences and the times and changing that belief, right? So if you can change connections equals fear to connection equals love, your life will change off the back of it. And you might hold lots of core beliefs about yourself, about situations, environments, people. And the thing that makes it very hard to get out of is because the situation that you've created and the position that you're in mirrors back the beliefs in which you have. It mirrors back. So when you start to change, you start to see these things. It's like, oh, hang on, that doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right with who I am. And then it becomes a battle then between, which is a very, very difficult battle, which I came up with a term this morning. It's intellect versus intuition. That's a nasty war to go on in certain ways. Because if you've got your brain telling you one thing, you can think, but you can't think your way out of a thinking problem all the time. You need to feel your way out as well, because this isn't just a mind thing. It's not just up here. It's here. It's it's your body, and going back to what I said about nervous system regulation, and like the physiological response that you get in certain situations, like you sometimes need to get your body back regulated, and then your mind will start to follow suit because it's interconnected. And I'm very much touching the surface here of, let's say, the topic of change and behavior change, rewiring core beliefs, rewiring understanding trauma and things like that. Just a very basic level. And there's a lot more to it, and it can be so complex, and it can be very specific to you as an individual. So don't just think, oh God, this could be maybe just more of an overarching thing that you could maybe take on board if you wanted to. But going back to the thing about men, so for example, the conflation between vulnerability and weakness. So if, let's say, for years, you're brought up in a society where if you are vulnerable, so if you show emotion, if you talk about love, if you show your true colours, if you show that you're caring, if you show that you are a gentleman, if you show those traits, you're weak. If you don't man up and get on with it, if you don't, if you don't get hurt or just fight on and just grit your teeth, get on with it, stuff it and just do it. Come on. That's almost the narrative sometimes, I think, for me in certain ways, that's come from many different ways, like an echo chamber, right? At many different situations. It's almost been like a bit of an echo chamber. Now, if you hold that, when you go through life, what happens when you need to open up? What happens, and what happens when, let's say, you did open up and then you were just pushed down for it? You were emotional and you were caring and you did think and you did do all these things, and then you were just shoved down because of it. It's like, that's not the way that you should be. You shouldn't be like that. You've got to grit your teeth. Come on, get on with it. talk about how you feel. We get things done round here. Let's just say that's a narrative. Then what happens in the future? Inevitably, when you enter into situations, and that could be anything interpersonal, right? Because interpersonal and intimate relationships, not just romantic, but with family, with friends, with anybody, when you have to be emotional, you have to navigate your own emotions and have emotional intelligence to move through these things, right? If you need to use these skills, but the biological and the physiological response that you get inside is fear, because it's been instilled into you and you've been told it's the wrong thing, in inverted commas, then you're not going to do it, because we run from fear. Fear is a very, very useful emotion inside of the body. It's there to teach us that's something that we should avoid. It's caused us pain in the past, so we need to avoid that. Let's come away. And that comes from our evolutionary biology from years and years and years ago. If a tiger jumps out the bush, we run. We feel fear. We get off. Cortisol, adrenaline, like heart rate high, shuttling blood to the muscles, shuttling carbohydrates into the muscles, utilizing energy and stores really quickly. All of these different things that are coming, at that time, to make you safe, to get you back to a safe position. But what if you see situations that are already safe as unsafe? That's not a good position to be in. And that's the process of rewiring yourself. So this conflation and vulnerability, and I'm just talking about men here, by the way, because I'm a guy and I know what I've felt and had almost put onto me in certain ways. And it's self-inflicted as well. It's not just because of everybody else. It's not just to point the finger. And it's not always just because of it's not anybody else's fault as well. Sometimes, these things come from a loving place. Some people don't even know that they've instilled this onto you. Society doesn't even know that sometimes it's instilled this onto you and the long-term effects that it can have. And that's why it's so important to, I think, have good positive role models. And the thing is as well, like, certain characteristic traits would have been very, very attractive at certain parts in time and history. So, for example, let's say the World War. Gritting your teeth, pulling your trousers up, lacing your boots on is a really, really good trait, it keeps you going, it keeps you fighting, it keeps you moving forward. And that's an important thing during that time, but then that potentially isn't going to be another thing that should be comparable and applicable to everyday life, for example. So it's really, important to have context to certain situations. It's not always just as easy as it's because of this, and then it's over there. It's not really like that. But I guess kind of the whole behaviour change and the core beliefs and the things that I've learnt about everything to do with things like this, and there's going to be like tens, if not hundreds, of instances that this has occurred in different areas of anybody's life, with different beliefs. Everybody holds theirs. Some people are held back more by their beliefs than others. But when you go back and you change these beliefs, and the crazy thing is, and this is what the world will tell us nowadays, and this is why it's so important to have good role models, I believe, is it's out there. The answer's out there. The answer's the book, the productivity hack, the podcast. How ironic. The podcast, the supplements you need to take, the method that you need to use, whatever, right? And don't get me wrong, these things can be useful, they can be helpful, they're really good, but it's in here. That's where you find the answers. It's within your body, it's within you. And it's sometimes, to go forward, it's not about looking about sometimes what's so forward, it's about going back. It's changing the things that hold you back. It's cutting off your balls and chains so you're free to move at a speed that you've never moved at before in your life. And I see this all the time with what I do, with what I work, and this is what's kind of why I've been really good. I'm really good at spotting patterns with people, and that's what's allowed me to coach and achieve such good results, because I can see patterns And when you can see a pattern repeat, you can then see where that pattern's come from. And you can see the seed or the root cause of the behavior patterns that are happening. If you change the seed, if you dig up the seed, plant a new one, water that, all of a sudden, all those behaviors that you were having won't occur. They won't happen. And that's the exact same thing as a core belief. It's the seed. And sometimes the crazy thing is you don't know where the seed is. You don't even know if you've got a seed in some way. You don't know the impact that it has. Because as soon as you start, digging up, all of a sudden there could be a rat's nest under there in some ways, which is very humbling and scary because you've got to look back and you've got to go inwards and you've got to have humility, which is very, 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 very hard in many different ways. Again, it depends on who you are and the experiences you have had. And some people might not even have to do this. But if you care about true behaviour change, and if you're having something which is stopping you from achieving a goal, so let's say, for example, because with what I do, weight management, if you find that you can't manage your weight and you're in a similar position, you keep having a yo-yo, and you keep coming back to the same spot, it's because you will have core beliefs. It's because you will have needs that you might not be able to meet on your own. Therefore, you might use food to emotionally eat. Or you'll have core beliefs about, I don't know, yourself or your worth or your body. So you have to keep on dieting, being in this dieting culture, or you have to keep on being a lower body weight. And you see this with like girls and like eating disorders. I say girls, guys struggle with it too, but I see it's more prevalent with girls. It's like this eating disorders. And of course, there's going to be many different things, but sometimes that stems from a place of, insufficiency or, shame to do with themselves as well, because it's that they're not good enough and they always have to kind of, their body is a representation of their self-worth. And I feel that because I've been there before, not to that extent in terms of an eating disorder, even though the level of control that I had in different areas and different ways was probably just as much the same at certain times in my life. But when you have your self-worth out there and it's external and it's not internal, then it's at the mercy of the external environment. It's at the mercy of the economy, of everything that you do all of the time and all of the interactions that you have. And it's much more deep-rooted than that in many different ways. And it could just be that for some people. It could be more. But the thing that I'm getting at is like if you want true change and you're finding that if the behaviours that you're having are holding you back from getting you to a place that you want to be in, or achieving a goal that you have, let's say from a body standpoint, relationships, family, career, hobbies, whatever. If there's something holding you back, sometimes it's not finding the next productivity habit. Sometimes it's trying to understand yourself, understand why you do the things that you do. Look at your behaviours, look at why you do your behaviours. That's why journaling's so good, because you can start to pick things apart and you can start to make links together and say, okay, well, this happens. Okay, what is it about that situation? Right, it's because I feel this way. What is that feeling? And you can start to break it down and pick it apart. And I guess that's what therapy is in some sense. So it's almost like a personal therapy session you can have every morning. But that's where true change occurs. And a lot of the time when it comes to my coaching, as much as I focus on things that can be quite surface level and that are external, it's also largely based around, okay, why do you feel that way? It's not just sometimes when it comes to maybe getting into great shape, it's not just eating healthier and moving more, which are the two things which are going to make you lose weight. Sometimes it's the things that are stopping you from doing those things. And the things that are stopping you from doing those things might be holding you back and you might have core beliefs about. For example, somebody who works too much. Why do you work too much? Because I feel like that's where I get my worth from. Okay, so your worth is external, it's not internal. Why is that? And you can go down that rabbit hole and you can find and rewire that belief, and all of a sudden you don't have to work too much, so you have more time. You have more time so you can exercise more, you can eat healthier, you can look after your health and wellness more, you can prioritize your health and fitness and longevity. Therefore, because you've rewired your core belief about self-worth and work and outsourcing that, you can now stay in great shape year round because you don't feel the need to do any of those things anymore. And I know that is a very, very layperson's way, and it's not that straightforward at all. But that's almost like the path in which you can take to change a behaviour from a core belief. Very, very like brief path you can take. And I guess that's kind of like integrating yourself and understanding yourself. And yeah, I mean, this is 35 minutes long, and it was meant to be 10 minutes, which I did on my phone this morning. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have, and if you think somebody will find this quite useful, send it to them. Let them know, because I think it could be really good, and I wish a lot of people would have provided information like this for me. That's quite kind of condensed and summarised, because I've gone round the houses with books and podcasts, and I know it's ironic that I say that the answer isn't out there, it's in here, which is true. But the things out there, like this podcast, can give you insights to then get to the conclusion that you can find out that the answer's in here. So I've been around the houses, and I've done hours and hours and hours of lectures and education every day, pretty much for the past 10 months. That's what my main goal has been. I've had to kind of change my life in many ways, but it's got me to a point now where I can evolve as a human and evolve, hopefully, my coaching. I say hopefully, 100% has evolved my coaching in many ways, and hopefully I can begin to offer potentially something a little bit different in the future as well. And I have been doing already, which is great. But also becoming more regular with these podcasts, because I actually really enjoy them when I sit down and I can actually talk over things with fluency and articulate them. Then I absolutely love it. It's like I love doing this. I love writing. I love doing this. I love articulating difficult ideas and understanding things. I definitely think that is one of my superpowers. Anyway, I'm kind of proud as well that I've been able to identify that. But lots more to come on different areas, and I love doing these ones on my own. It'd be great to get other people in the future. I don't want to start making promises, because who knows. But I really like these ones because I can sit down, I can talk over things, I can hopefully give people insights, even though I might not be 100% right. It might give you some golden nuggets that you can take from this, and that's what it's all about, right? So if anyone enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up, let us know, and have a good day. Speak soon.